She landed a plane with no landing gear. 21 years old. A student pilot. Completely alone. 2 F-22 fighter jets flew beside her and watched in complete silence. Because in 16 years of flying, they had never seen anything like it. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. It was a Saturday. Not just any Saturday, it was the kind of Saturday that makes you feel like the world is being kind to you. The sky above Phoenix, Arizona was completely clear. Not a single cloud anywhere. The sun was already bright and warm at 8:47 in the morning, and the temperature was climbing toward 85 degrees Fahrenheit. A light wind was blowing from the west at only 6 knots, barely enough to move the leaves on a tree. The air smelled clean. The sky was so blue it looked almost fake, like someone had painted it. It was, by every measure, a perfect morning to fly a small airplane. At Phoenix Deer Valley Airport, the day had already started busy. Deer Valley was one of the busiest general aviation airports in the entire United States, meaning it was not a big commercial airport with jumbo jets, but a smaller airport used mostly by private pilots, student pilots, and small training aircraft. On a beautiful Saturday morning like this one, pilots came out early. A dozen small aircraft were already moving around the airport. Some were taxiing out to the runway, their little engines humming. Some were practicing touch-and-goes, taking off, flying a short loop around the airport, landing, and immediately taking off again, over and over, to build skill. The radio crackled with calm, professional voices, student pilots checking in, controllers giving instructions, engines roaring as small planes climbed into the clear Arizona sky. It looked like a completely normal Saturday morning at a busy flight training airport. Among all the aircraft moving around that morning, there was one small Cessna 172 Skyhawk with the tail number N2847X. It was white with a blue and red stripe running along its side. It had 4 seats, a single propeller at the front, and 1 engine. It had been flying since 1998. It had carried hundreds of student pilots through their early lessons. It looked completely ordinary, just another small training airplane on just another beautiful morning. In the left seat of that Cessna, with both hands slightly trembling on the control yoke, sat Maya Patel. If you had walked past Maya Patel on the campus of Arizona State University, you probably would not have looked twice at her. She was 21 years old. She was small, only 5 feet 3 inches tall. She had long dark hair that she always kept pulled back in a ponytail, though the ponytail was always slightly messy because it kept coming loose and she had to retie it every hour. She wore purple-framed glasses that were always slipping down her nose. She wore an oversized ASU hoodie this morning, because small airplane cabins are cold in the early morning, even in Arizona, and black leggings and running shoes that had seen better days. Her backpack, which was sitting in the right seat behind her, was covered in stickers. NASA. SpaceX. Boeing. Blue Origin. Nevertheless, she persisted. Women in STEM. Future astronaut. Inside the backpack were 3 aviation textbooks, each one stuffed so full of sticky notes that they barely closed. Pink sticky notes for emergency procedures. Yellow ones for flying regulations. Blue ones for weather. Green ones for navigation. She looked exactly like what she was on the surface, a nerdy, studious, slightly awkward third-year aerospace engineering student who probably spent most of her time in the university library. She did not look like someone who was about to make aviation history. Maya was a junior at Arizona State University, studying aerospace engineering. She had started flight training 6 months ago. She had saved the money herself, 2 whole years of saving, by tutoring high school math students at $20 an hour and working at the campus library at $15 an hour. She had 47.8 total flight hours logged in her logbook. She was getting close to the requirements for her private pilot certificate, but she was not quite there yet. Her flight instructor was Captain Rebecca Thompson, who everyone called Beex. Beex was 42 years old. She was a former United States Air Force cargo pilot with 4,100 total flight hours. She had been teaching civilians to fly for 11 years and had trained more than 200 students. She had seen every kind of student you could imagine, nervous ones, overconfident ones, brilliant natural pilots, people who struggled their whole training. She thought she had seen everything. This morning, Beex had sent Maya up alone for solo pattern work. 6 touch-and-go landings. Take off, fly the rectangular pattern around the airport, land, immediately apply power and take off again, repeat 6 times. It was the kind of practice that builds muscle memory, getting your body used to the feel of the aircraft, the timing of the landings, the routine of the pattern. Before the flight, Beex had stood beside the plane on the hot tarmac and given Maya her usual calm advice, just pattern work. 6 takeoffs and landings. Build your muscle memory. You overthink everything, Maya, but your knowledge is solid. Just trust your training. The airplane wants to fly. Let it. Maya had nodded seriously and written the words down in her small notebook. Beex had walked back to the flight school building to watch from the ground. Here is something important to understand about Maya Patel: she was not a naturally talented pilot. She had zero natural feel for flying. Her flight instructor Beex had once told another instructor, privately, that Maya flew like she is trying to steer a shopping cart with broken wheels. She over-controlled constantly. A small correction would turn into a big overcorrection, which would turn into another overcorrection in the opposite direction. Her landings were often hard enough that Beex joked about checking the airframe for damage afterward. She struggled with smooth inputs. Even gentle turns required enormous concentration from her to execute correctly. And yet, Maya compensated for her lack of natural talent with something almost supernatural. She was obsessively, relentlessly, borderline compulsively prepared. She had passed her FAA written exam, the big theory test that every pilot must pass, with a score of 98%. She was still angry about the 2 questions she got wrong. She had them memorized. She could recite them word for word and explain exactly why the wrong answers were wrong. While other student pilots studied the required material and then went home and lived their lives, Maya had gone far, far beyond the curriculum. She had created a 47-page personal emergency procedures manual, organized by how likely each emergency was and how serious the consequences were. She had color-coded it and laminated every page. She had watched 142 YouTube videos of emergency landings. She had counted every single one. She had read 38 different official accident investigation reports specifically about landing gear failures. She had even gone to the University Maker Lab and used the 3D printer to build a scale model of the Cessna 172 landing gear system, so she could hold it in her hands and physically understand exactly how the mechanical parts worked and where they might break. Her roommate Priya thought she was obsessive. Her study group thought she was paranoid. Her parents, traditional Indian parents from a good family who had moved to Arizona from Ahmedabad when Maya was 7 years old, strongly disapproved of the whole flying thing. They thought it was dangerous. They thought it was a distraction from her real studies. They thought it was a waste of the money she had worked so hard to save. Focus on your engineering degree, her father had said more than once. Find a good job. Then maybe flying as a hobby, fine. But now? Now is not the time for expensive, dangerous activities. What none of them knew was that Maya maintained a 3.9 GPA while doing all of this. They also did not know that her obsessive preparation was not really about flying at all. It was about fear. Maya Patel had a deep, bone-level terror of failure. Not of death. Not of danger. Of failure. Her worst nightmare was not crashing an airplane, her worst nightmare was failing at something because she had not prepared enough. The thought of being caught in a situation she did not know how to handle, of being unprepared, was so unbearable to her that she had developed a coping strategy over her whole life. She prepared for everything. Every possible scenario. Every unlikely emergency. Every 1 in a million failure that statistically should never happen. Other people looked at this and saw paranoia. Maya looked at it and saw survival. On this particular beautiful Saturday morning, she had absolutely no idea that in approximately 23 minutes, that obsession was going to save her life. 8:52 a.m. Maya pushed the throttle forward. N-2847X began rolling down runway 7 and lifted into the clear Arizona sky. The first circuit was rough, as Maya's landings usually were. She used too much right rudder on the takeoff roll and had to overcorrect twice to keep the aircraft going straight. Her turns in the pattern were sloppy, not dangerous, but not smooth. When she came in to land, she flared too late, and the airplane hit the runway harder than it should have. She felt the jolt through her spine. She had to add power and bounce into the air again before getting the aircraft settled. From the ground, Beex's calm voice came through Maya's headset radio, "Maya, smoother on the flare. Do not jerk the controls. Like stirring honey, remember. Slow, smooth, easy. Copy. Smoother next time," Maya replied. She wrote a note to herself in her small logbook even as she applied power for the second takeoff. The second circuit was slightly better. Her approach was more stable. The landing was still hard, but she got it down on the first attempt this time. The third circuit was better still. Much better. Beex's voice had something almost like real encouragement in it. That landing was almost acceptable. Maya smiled inside her cold airplane cabin. She was getting it. Slowly, imperfectly, one hard bounce at a time. But she was getting it. 9:10 a.m. Fourth takeoff. Maya pushed the throttle smoothly forward and felt the Cessna accelerate down the runway and lift into the air. She climbed to pattern altitude, 1,000 feet above the ground, and turned left to follow the rectangular pattern around the airport. The sun was getting warmer now. Below her, Phoenix spread out in every direction, flat and wide and glittering in the morning light. For just a moment, despite her nerves, despite her shaking hands, despite everything, Maya felt the simple, pure happiness of being in the air. The feeling that she had been chasing since she was a little girl, watching planes fly over her neighborhood and deciding, with absolute certainty, that she was going to do that someday. She reached the downwind leg of the pattern, the long straight stretch that runs parallel to the runway, going in the opposite direction. This was the point where a pilot configures the airplane for landing. Maya reached for her checklist, which she had laminated and attached to a clip on the instrument panel. She read it out loud, the way Beex had taught her. Gas, full tank, check. Undercarriage, extending gear now. Mixture, rich, check. Prop, full, check. Seatbelts, secure, check. She pulled the landing gear extension handle. She waited for 3 green lights to appear on the instrument panel. 3 green lights meant left main gear down and locked, right main gear down and locked, nose gear down and locked. 3 greens meant safe to land. 2 green lights appeared. 1 red light glowed. 9:10 and 34 seconds a.m. Left main gear, green. Down and locked. Right main gear, green. Down and locked. Nose gear, red. Unsafe. Not extended. Not locked. Maya stared at the instrument panel. She blinked hard. She looked away and looked back. She tapped the panel with one finger, the way you tap a gauge you do not trust. Still 2 green lights. Still 1 red light. For exactly 4 seconds, Maya Patel experienced a level of fear she had never felt before in her 21 years of life. It was not the manageable nervousness of a hard landing or the uncomfortable anxiety of a difficult maneuver. This was something older and colder. And deeper. Her heart rate shot up so fast she could feel it hammering in her temples. Her vision narrowed, the edges of her sight went dark, like someone was closing a curtain. Both her hands on the yoke began to shake visibly. She was alone. 1,000 feet in the air. In an aircraft with a landing gear that would not come down. With 47 hours of experience. 4 seconds of pure, complete, overwhelming terror. And then. Her engineering brain turned on. It was not exactly a decision. It was more like a switch being thrown deep inside her. Later, when she tried to explain it to investigators, she would say, "I did not choose to calm down. Something in me just shifted. Like it recognized the situation and started running the right program automatically." She took 3 slow, deep breaths. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. She had learned this technique from a YouTube video about managing flight anxiety. She had practiced it so many times sitting at her desk that it had become completely automatic. Her hands were still shaking. But they were functional. She reached carefully into her flight bag, without taking her eyes off the horizon, because she was still flying the airplane, and you always fly the airplane first, and pulled out her personal emergency checklist binder. The pink section. Gear malfunctions. She picked up the radio microphone. Her voice was trembling. But it was clear and professional. "Dear Valley Tower, Cessna 2847X, I have an unsafe nose gear indication, showing 2 green and 1 red. Requesting vectors away from the pattern to troubleshoot the malfunction." In the control tower, the controller on duty was a 14-year veteran named Dave Morales. He had handled many student pilot problems in his career: scared kids who got lost, students who encountered unexpected weather, nervous voices on the radio needing reassurance. A landing gear problem on a solo student pilot was something different. He felt a chill, but his voice stayed calm and professional. 2847X, Roger. Fly heading 360. Climb and maintain 3,500 feet. Advise when ready for further instructions. Heading 360, 3,500 feet, 2847X, Maya replied. She banked the Cessna north, away from the airport pattern, away from the other aircraft, climbing into the open sky. Giving herself room to think and troubleshoot. She leveled off at 3,500 feet and established a steady straight heading. Good. Aviate first. Fly the airplane. Then troubleshoot. She opened her pink checklist. She read every word carefully, even though she already had it memorized. Step 1, recycle the gear. She moved the gear handle up, counted to 3 slowly, then moved it back to the down position. The main gear lights went amber for a moment, then turned green. The nose gear light stayed red. No change. Step 2, check the circuit breaker for the landing gear electrical system. She ran her finger slowly down the circuit breaker panel on the right side of the cockpit. She found the landing gear breaker. It was fully seated, it had not popped. No electrical fault. Which meant the problem was mechanical, somewhere inside the gear mechanism itself. Step 3, manual extension. She already knew what she would find here, because she had studied it. She checked anyway, because that was proper procedure, and she was not going to skip proper procedure because she was scared. She confirmed what she knew: the Cessna 172 used in this training fleet did not have a manual nose gear extension option. The nose gear was electrically operated only. There was no backup hand crank. No cable to pull. No mechanical override. If the electrical system could not bring it down, it was not coming down. Step 4, rock the wings sharply to try to shake the gear loose with vibration. She banked left 30 degrees, then right 30 degrees, then left again, sharp, deliberate movements. The nose gear indicator did not change. She had been troubleshooting for 7 minutes. She had done everything her checklist said to do. She had tried everything she knew how to try. Nothing had worked. The nose gear was stuck. Fully retracted up into the nose of the aircraft, jammed in the closed position with no mechanical or electrical solution available to her. It was not going to come down. Maya set down her checklist carefully. She looked out the windshield at the vast blue Arizona sky around her. She breathed slowly. She thought clearly. She had known this moment might come. She had studied for it. She had a plan. She picked up the radio microphone. Dear Valley Tower, 2847X. I have been unable to extend the nose gear after completing full troubleshooting procedures. I have recycled the gear, checked the circuit breaker, confirmed no manual extension is available on this aircraft, and attempted wing rocking. No change. I am declaring an emergency. I am a student pilot on a solo flight with 47 total hours. I am requesting instructions and guidance for executing a nose gear up landing. In the tower, Dave Morales closed his eyes for exactly 1 second. Then he opened them and started doing his job. He notified the airport emergency services. Fire trucks began moving immediately toward the runway. He cleared all other traffic out of the pattern around the airport. He contacted the airport manager. And then he got back on the radio. 2847X, copy. Emergency declared. Remain at 3,500 feet on heading 360. Emergency services are being notified and will be standing by. You are doing great. Stand by for further instructions. 2847X, standing by, Maya said. Her hands were still shaking. But she was flying the airplane. She was maintaining her altitude and heading. She was doing exactly what her instructor had drilled into her brain through dozens of lessons: aviate, navigate, communicate, in that order. Always fly the airplane first. Everything else second. 15 miles north of Deer Valley Airport, 2 aircraft were flying that bore absolutely no resemblance to Maya's little white Cessna. They were F-22 Raptors, the most advanced fighter jets in the world. Each one had twin engines powerful enough to push the aircraft past the speed of sound without even using the afterburners. They were built with stealth technology that made them nearly invisible to radar. They were equipped with computer systems so sophisticated they could track and engage multiple enemy aircraft simultaneously from dozens of miles away. Each aircraft cost approximately $150 million. They were fast, powerful, complex, deadly, and magnificent in the way that only a machine built to be the best at something can be magnificent. The pilots flying them were equally impressive. In the lead aircraft, Major Tyler Rodriguez, military callsign Viper. He was 38 years old. He had been flying in the United States Air Force for 16 years. He had 3,100 total flight hours, most of them in fighter jets. He was a combat veteran who had flown real missions in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was a father of 2 daughters, aged 12 and 9. He was the kind of pilot who had seen real combat, real emergencies, real disasters, and had remained calm and professional through all of it. In the wingman aircraft, Captain Sarah Martinez, military callsign Hawk. She was 29 years old. She had been flying for 7 years. She had 1,600 total flight hours. She had graduated at the top of her class at Fighter Weapons School, the Air Force's elite advanced training program that only the very best pilots attend. She was one of only 12 female F-22 pilots in the entire United States Air Force. She had worked harder to earn her seat in that cockpit than almost anyone could imagine, overcoming obstacles that her male colleagues had never faced, proving herself again and again until there was no longer any argument about whether she belonged there. They were conducting air combat maneuvering training, practicing the complex, high-energy dogfighting techniques that fighter pilots drill constantly to stay sharp. It was a routine training morning for both of them. And then, on the common aviation radio frequency that all aircraft in the area could hear, they heard Maya's emergency call. Both pilots went quiet at exactly the same moment. Viper spoke first, on their private encrypted communication channel. Student pilot. Solo. Gear problem. Female voice. Sounds young. A pause. This is not good. Hawk was quiet for a longer moment. When she spoke, her voice was careful and direct. She sounded scared. But she was coherent. She reported her situation correctly. She declared the emergency properly. She said she has already completed the troubleshooting. Another pause. Viper, I want to help her. Request permission to assist. Viper thought about his daughters. 12 and 9 years old. He thought about what it would feel like to know that one of them was up there, alone, in a broken airplane, with 47 hours of experience. His protective instinct, the same one that made him a good father and a good leader, kicked in immediately. Agreed, he said. Let's go. Viper switched radio frequencies to Deer Valley Tower. Deer Valley Tower, this is Viper 1, flight of 2 F-22s conducting training exercises currently 15 miles north of your location. We monitored the emergency transmission from Cessna 2847X. We are requesting permission to provide visual assistance to that aircraft. We can fly alongside her, inspect her landing gear condition visually, and provide guidance and support. In the tower, Dave Morales felt genuine relief wash over him. 2 experienced Air Force fighter pilots volunteering to help a 21-year-old student, that was the best possible thing that could have happened in this situation. Viper 1, assistance is approved and very much appreciated. 2847X is on heading 360 at 3,500 feet. Pilot is a 21-year-old student pilot, solo flight, 47 total hours. Please be advised. Viper 1, copy. We are intercepting now. The 2 F-22s banked south and accelerated toward Maya's position. Maya had heard Viper's transmission to the tower. She processed it while continuing to fly her steady circles at 3,500 feet. F-22 fighter jet pilots. Actual United States Air Force combat pilots in the most advanced aircraft in the world. Volunteering to come help her. Coming to her. She felt 3 things almost at the same time. First, embarrassment. She was bothering elite military pilots with what felt like a student pilot problem, taking them away from their important training. Second, genuine gratitude. Professional, experienced help was exactly what she needed right now, and she was smart enough to be grateful for it rather than too proud to accept it. Third, a sudden, fierce determination. She was not going to just be the scared kid they came to rescue. She was going to show them that she was prepared. That she knew what she was doing. She pushed her purple glasses up her nose. She keyed the microphone. Viper 1, this is 2847X. I appreciate the assistance very much. I am currently maintaining 3,500 feet on heading 360. I have confirmed that the nose gear will not extend through either standard procedures or emergency troubleshooting. I am currently preparing to execute a nose gear up landing following emergency checklist protocols. There was a brief silence on the frequency. Viper had been expecting fear and confusion from a scared young student. Instead he heard a calm, organized, professional statement of situation and plan. 2847X, Viper 1. We will be with you in approximately 90 seconds. You are doing great. Hang tight. Thank you, sir, Maya said. Her voice was small. Young. Underneath the professional language, it was clearly frightened. In her F-22 cockpit, Captain Sarah Martinez felt something tighten in her chest. That small voice. That simple, thank you, sir, with all the vulnerability underneath it. Something about it reached right through the professional distance between them and landed directly in her heart. 90 seconds later, the 2 Raptors appeared off Maya's left wing. Maya had never seen F-22s up close in the air before. She had seen photos, of course. She was an aerospace engineering student who had literally NASA stickers on her backpack. She had studied these aircraft. But seeing them in person, just 50 feet off her left wing, was something completely different. They were enormous compared to her little Cessna, powerful and angular and dark, their stealth-shaped surfaces catching the morning sun. They looked almost unreal, like something from a movie. Viper positioned his aircraft below and slightly behind Maya's Cessna and used his targeting systems to get a close, detailed look at the nose gear bay on the underside of the aircraft. What he saw confirmed everything. The nose gear was completely retracted, tucked up flush against the fuselage. There was no sign of partial extension. No mechanical reason for hope. It was completely and totally stuck in the closed position. Hawk maneuvered her Raptor into a close position off Maya's left wing. She was close enough that Maya could clearly see her through the canopy. Hawk was wearing her oxygen mask, so Maya could not see her expression. But Hawk raised her right hand and gave a slow, deliberate, clear thumbs up. "You've got this." Maya felt something shift inside her. For the past 10 minutes, she had been completely alone with her fear, alone in a broken airplane with nothing but her training and her preparation. She was not alone anymore. There were people here with her. People who knew what they were doing. People who had come specifically to help her. She straightened her back slightly in her seat. Viper keyed the mic, 2847X, Viper 1. Visual confirmation complete. Nose gear is fully retracted, no partial extension observed. Left main gear and right main gear are extended normally. You have nose gear failure only, your main gear looks good. Copy, nose gear failure only, main gear good. Thank you for the visual confirmation, Maya said. What is your plan, 2847X? Viper asked. Maya had been building this briefing in her head since the moment she declared the emergency. She had mentally rehearsed it while troubleshooting. She had gone through it step by step while flying her steady circles. She knew exactly what she was going to say, because she had read this exact scenario so many times that every word and every step was carved permanently into her memory. She keyed the microphone and spoke clearly. My plan is as follows. I will position for a long final approach to runway 14, the longest available runway. I will set my approach speed at 60 knots, which is 5 knots below my normal landing speed. The lower speed reduces the kinetic energy at touchdown and reduces the force of the nose impact when it eventually settles onto the runway. Prior to beginning my final approach, I will shut down all non-essential electrical systems, cabin heat, radio navigation aids, interior lighting, to reduce the number of potential ignition sources in case of a post-landing fire. On touchdown, I will land on my 2 main gear wheels first and hold the nose off the runway using maximum back elevator pressure for as long as the aerodynamics allow. As my airspeed decreases and my elevator control becomes ineffective, I will allow the nose to settle to the runway surface in a controlled manner. I will not let it slam down, I will guide it down. I will keep the engine at idle throughout the approach and landing to minimize propeller damage. After the aircraft comes to a stop, I will execute immediate shutdown, mixture to cut off, fuel selector to off, master switch off, ignition off. Then I will open the left door, exit the aircraft, and walk upwind at least 50 feet to clear any potential fire risk from spilled fuel. I have calculated my fuel load and I am currently burning down to a lighter weight to reduce energy at touchdown. I would like to practice the approach profile once or twice before committing to the final landing. Silence. Not the static silence of a dead radio. The specific, particular silence of professional pilots who have just heard something completely unexpected and need a moment to process it. On their private encrypted channel, Viper said quietly to Hawk, "Did a 21-year-old student pilot with 47 hours just brief a gear-up landing better than experienced airline pilots I have flown with?" Hawk's response was immediate and certain. "She prepared for this, Tyler. Listen to her terminology. Listen to her procedures. She did not make that up on the spot. She has studied this exact scenario. She knew exactly what to say because she has practiced exactly what to do." Viper switched back to the main frequency. 2847X, what are your total flight hours? 47.8 hours, sir. Another silence. Longer this time. 47 hours. And you just gave a more complete and technically correct gear-up landing briefing than pilots I have flown with who have 3,000 hours. How do you know all of this? Maya hesitated for a moment. It felt almost embarrassing to explain. I study emergency procedures, sir. A lot. I read NTSB accident reports and I watch videos and I build my own checklists. I wanted to be prepared. In case something like this ever happened. In case something like this ever happened, Viper repeated slowly. On the private channel, he said to Hawk, she prepared specifically for this scenario. A student pilot with 47 hours went home and studied gear-up landings because she wanted to be ready just in case. A long pause. She is going to be completely fine. She may actually be better prepared for this right now than most commercial pilots. Hawk switched to the main frequency. Her voice was warm and direct. 2847X, this is Hawk, I am Viper's wingman. I want you to hear this clearly, what you are doing right now is outstanding. Your radio work, your troubleshooting, your briefing, all of it has been outstanding. We are going to be right here with you the entire time. You are not alone. You have got this. Maya swallowed. When she answered, her voice had the smallest catch in it. Thank you, ma'am. That means more than you know. What happened over the next 40 minutes would later be described by the FAA investigator as the most systematic and professionally executed emergency preparation he had ever seen from any pilot with less than 500 hours, let alone a student with 47. Maya did not rush. She did not panic. She worked through her preparation like she was following a checklist, which she was, because she had a checklist for this. First, she burned fuel. A lighter airplane has less energy at touchdown, which means less damage when the nose hits the runway. She flew in wide, slow circles at reduced power, watching her fuel gauges drop from 40 gallons toward the 20-gallon level she had calculated as optimal. She had read about this in one of her NTSB accident reports. A pilot who had performed a successful gear-up landing had specifically mentioned burning down the fuel load first. While she burned fuel, she reviewed her laminated emergency checklist. She reviewed it 7 times. Not because she did not know it, she could recite every word from memory, but because checking the written checklist was proper procedure, and she was not going to skip proper procedure because she was scared. She practiced the approach twice without landing. She flew the entire final approach path all the way down to 50 feet above the runway, held her position, assessed her speed and glide path, then added full power and climbed away to try again. She wanted to know exactly what the correct approach felt like before she committed to the actual landing. She wanted no surprises. She shut down the cabin heating system. She turned off the radio navigation display. She turned off the interior lighting. She turned off every electrical system that was not essential for safe flight, reducing the number of things that could spark in case fuel leaked during the landing. She gave the tower a precise, detailed briefing of her planned touchdown point, her expected stopping distance, and her planned evacuation route. She answered every question the controller asked with calm, complete accuracy. Through all of it, Hawk stayed with her. Not commanding. Not taking over. Not trying to make her decisions for her. Just present. Checking in every few minutes. Steady and warm and real. You are doing perfect. Just like you planned. We are right here. Thank you, Hawk, Maya said, after the 3rd or 4th time. I am really glad you are here. So am I, Hawk said. And she meant it completely. Up above them, flying a wider orbit to keep the area clear, Viper listened to the 2 women talk and thought about what he was witnessing. He had been flying fighters for 16 years. He had been in real combat. He had seen pilots perform under the most extreme kinds of pressure that human beings can experience. And what he was watching from this 21-year-old student pilot, this systematic, calm, methodical preparation in the face of a genuine emergency, was something he did not see every day. He thought about his daughters again. 12 and 9 years old. He thought, I want them to grow up to be like this. 10:17 a.m. Maya had burned her fuel to the level she had planned. Her checklist was complete. Her 2 practice approaches had gone well. She had done everything she could do to prepare. There was nothing left to do but land. Deer Valley Tower, 2847X. I am ready to begin my final approach. Requesting runway 14 for the nose gear-up landing. Dave Morales in the tower had been watching the emergency vehicles position themselves along runway 14 for the past 30 minutes. Fire trucks with foam cannons. Ambulances. Airport operations vehicles. 23 people on the ground whose job was now to respond to whatever happened when that little Cessna came down. 2847X, you are cleared to land runway 14. Wind is calm, no crosswind. Emergency equipment is in position and standing by. You are clear to begin whenever you are ready. Take all the time you need. 2847X, beginning approach now. Maya turned the Cessna south and began her descent toward the airport. 5 miles out. Long, straight final approach. Exactly as she had planned it and practiced it. From above, Hawk pulled her F-22 alongside the Cessna. Viper took a position slightly higher, watching the whole picture. The airport appeared in Maya's windshield. Small at first. Then growing. Runway 14 was the long diagonal strip stretching toward the southeast, its big white numbers painted at the near end. She could see the fire trucks positioned along the sides. She could see the foam already being spread on the runway surface. She could see a dozen tiny figures standing and watching. She focused. She pushed everything else out of her mind. Just the runway. Just the speed. Just the glide path. Approach speed, 60 knots. Exactly as planned. 5 below normal. Glide path, 3 degrees. Perfect. Looking good, Maya. Perfect profile, Hawk said. 3 miles. Speed 60, altitude perfect. You are nailing this, at 2 miles. Runway is made. You've got it. 1 mile, at 1 mile. From his higher position, Viper watched and said nothing on the private channel for once. He just watched. The runway threshold was coming up fast now. The white painted numbers. The centerline stripe. The beginning of the most important strip of pavement in Maya Patel's young life. 50 feet above the ground. Maya applied gentle back pressure on the yoke, beginning the flare. Smooth. Like stirring honey. She heard Bex's voice in her head saying it, over and over, in 100 landings. 40 feet. 30 feet. Speed 58 knots. Descent rate slowing. 20 feet. 10 feet. She held her breath. The 2 main wheels touched the runway. Softly. Perfectly. As smooth as any landing she had ever made, smoother, in fact, than most of the landings she had made in normal conditions. It was as though the pressure of the emergency had focused her completely, cutting away every unnecessary thought, leaving only pure, clean flying. And then the hardest part began. Maya pulled back on the yoke with both hands, applying the maximum back pressure the controls would allow, fighting with every ounce of her strength to keep the nose of the Cessna pointed up at the sky. This was the critical phase. The longer she could hold the nose in the air, the slower the aircraft would be moving when it finally came down, and the less damage the impact would cause. The aircraft was rolling down the runway on its 2 main wheels with the nose pointing at the sky. Airspeed bleeding off. 50 knots. 45, 40. 35. She held it. Back pressure. Don't let it drop. Not yet. Not yet. Hold it. From overhead, Tyler Rodriguez, combat veteran, 3,100 hours, man who had seen everything, was holding his breath. He muttered under it, "Hold it. Hold it. Hold it." 30 knots. The elevator was starting to lose its effectiveness. She could feel it in the controls, they were getting soft, mushy, less responsive. The nose wanted to fall. 25 knots. She could not hold it anymore. The aerodynamics would not allow it. Maya let the nose settle. Not a crash. Not a slam. A controlled, deliberate, guided lowering, the same way you might place something fragile and irreplaceable on a table. She kept back pressure on the yoke all the way down, slowing and guiding the nose as much as the controls would allow. The nose of the Cessna touched the runway. The propeller blades hit the pavement with a shrieking, grinding sound and a fountain of orange sparks. The propeller shattered instantly, sending pieces skittering across the runway. The engine lurched violently and stopped. The bare nose gear bay scraped along the pavement, throwing more sparks. The aircraft shuddered, lurched, and began to slow. But it did not flip forward. It did not cartwheel. It did not roll over or spin. It slid straight down the runway's centerline, stable and controlled, shedding speed. 20 knots. 15, 10. 5. Stop. N-2847X came to rest on runway 14 at Phoenix Deer Valley Airport at 10:19 a.m. on Saturday, May 18, 2024. The aircraft was resting on its two main gear wheels and its damaged nose. Sparks still drizzling from beneath the nose. Smoke beginning to rise from the hot metal. Inside the cockpit, Maya Patel's hands were already moving. She did not sit in shock. She did not freeze. Her hands flew through the shutdown sequence she had rehearsed 50 times in her head: mixture control to cut off, fuel selector to off, master switch off, magnetos off, unbuckle seatbelt, open left door, climb out, walk upwind, stop. The entire sequence took 14 seconds. She stood on the grass beside runway 14, 50 feet from the aircraft, and that was when the adrenaline hit her. All of it at once. She began to shake so violently that she had to put both hands on her knees to stop herself from falling down. Her legs felt like they were made of water. Her breathing came in ragged gasps that were almost sobs, not quite crying, but very close. The full weight of everything that had just happened crashed down on her all at once, now that it was over, now that she was safe, now that she did not have to hold herself together anymore. Fire trucks were already there, spraying white foam across the nose of the aircraft. Airport vehicles were pulling up around her. Someone ran up and put a hand on her shoulder and asked if she was injured. "I'm okay," she said. "I'm okay. I'm okay." She kept saying it, partly to reassure the people around her and partly to reassure herself. "I'm okay." She was completely uninjured. Not a scratch. Not a bruise. The Cessna was damaged, destroyed propeller, cracked nose gear bay, scraped up underside, but the airframe was structurally intact. The wings were fine. The tail was fine. The aircraft could be repaired. It would fly again. From overhead, the two F-22s made a low, slow pass over runway 14, a fighter pilot's way of paying respect. Then Viper keyed his microphone. "Deer Valley Tower, Viper 1. I need to say something for the record. We just watched a 21-year-old female student pilot with fewer than 50 total flight hours execute a nose gear-up emergency landing that I would be proud to have in my own logbook. That young woman is either the luckiest person in the state of Arizona today, or she is the most thoroughly prepared student pilot I have encountered in 16 years of flying and training pilots. Based on her radio discipline, her emergency procedures, her briefing, and that landing, I am going with prepared. When she earns her pilot certificate, somebody should hire her immediately. She is extraordinary." In the tower, Dave Morales sat back in his chair and let out a long, slow breath. He had been holding tension in his body for the past 40 minutes without fully realizing it. He pressed the transmit button. "Viper 1, we were thinking the exact same thing. Thank you for your assistance today." On the main frequency, a different voice came through, warm and full and genuine. "Maya. This is Hawk. I want you to hear this clearly. What you just did was perfect. Technically perfect. Procedurally perfect. What you proved today is something that took me years to fully understand. Preparation beats experience. Every single time. I am so proud of you that I do not have words for it. Maya was still standing on the grass beside the runway, shaking, with someone's arm around her shoulders. Her radio was still clipped to her chest. She found it. She pressed the button. "Thank you, Hawk," she said. Her voice was thick with tears. "Thank you both so much. I could not have done it without you being there." "Yes, you could have," Hawk said quietly. "You had everything you needed already. We just kept you company." The two F-22s requested permission to land at Deer Valley Airport, an unusual request, since military fighter jets almost never land at small civilian airports, but one that the airport immediately granted. They taxied slowly and carefully to the ramp area, their massive engines spooling down. Hawk climbed out first. She was tall and dark-haired, still in her olive-green flight suit, her helmet bag over one shoulder. She crossed the hot tarmac at a brisk walk, and when she reached Maya, she did not offer a handshake or a professional nod. She wrapped her arms around the 21-year-old and held on for a real, genuine, warm hug, the kind that does not count seconds. Maya started crying properly then. Relief, exhaustion, shock, gratitude, all of it coming out at once. She did not try to stop it. There was nothing to be ashamed of. Viper came up behind Hawk. He was tall and broad with the quiet, economical movements that combat pilots develop after years of flying, moving only when necessary, wasting nothing. He extended his right hand, and Maya shook it. His grip was firm and deliberate. "Young lady, I have been training military pilots for 16 years, he said. "Some of the best fighter pilots in the world have come through programs I have been part of. What you demonstrated today, your situational awareness, your radio procedures, your systematic troubleshooting, your briefing, and that landing, was exceptional. Not exceptional for a student pilot. Not exceptional for someone your age. Exceptional, period." Maya looked down at her worn running shoes, suddenly embarrassed by the attention. "I was so scared, though. My hands were shaking the whole time. I thought," she stopped. Swallowed. "I was really scared." "Of course you were scared," Hawk said. "Being scared does not matter. What matters is what you do when you are scared. You were terrified and you executed perfectly anyway. That is not luck. That is not talent. That is the result of building something real inside yourself." 10 minutes later, Bex Thompson arrived at a run. She had been on the ground watching the whole thing. She had been watching the emergency vehicles roll out. She had been listening on the radio to every single transmission. She had been standing there helpless, unable to do anything except watch and hope, and it had been the hardest 40 minutes of her 11-year teaching career. She came across the ramp fast and grabbed Maya and held her tight without saying anything for a long moment. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were wet behind her sunglasses. "You scared me to death," she said. "You absolutely terrified me." She paused. "But you were perfect. Maya, you were completely perfect." "I just followed the procedures," Maya said. "Like you always taught me." Bex shook her head slowly. "I teach every student the procedures. You are the only one who ever went home and memorized 38 accident reports and built a model of the landing gear to understand how it worked. I can teach you the procedures. I cannot teach you that level of preparation. That came from you. That was all yours." 3 weeks after the incident, the FAA completed their investigation. The cause had been identified clearly: a cracked support bracket inside the nose gear mechanism. The crack had developed slowly over time and had not been detected during the aircraft's most recent annual inspection. It was described in the official report as a 1 in a million mechanical failure, the kind of thing that statistically should never happen but occasionally does. It had nothing to do with anything Maya had done. It was not her fault in any way. There was nothing she could have done to prevent it. What she could control, and had controlled, with extraordinary precision, was everything that happened after. The FAA investigator assigned to her case was a 22-year veteran named Michael Chen. He had investigated hundreds of incidents and interviewed hundreds of pilots across his career. He had a reputation for being thorough, careful, and not easily impressed. He sat across from Maya in a small office at the Phoenix Flight Standards District office and opened his notebook. "Miss Patel, how did you stay so calm during the emergency?" Maya thought about the question carefully. She always thought carefully before answering, but this time she took an especially long time. "I want to be clear about something first," she said finally. "I was not calm. I want to make sure that is in the record. I was genuinely terrified. When that red light came on and the nose gear would not come down, I had a moment where I could barely breathe. My hands were shaking visibly the entire time, from the moment the gear failed until the moment the aircraft stopped on the runway. My vision was narrowing. For those first few seconds, I was completely overwhelmed by fear." She paused and straightened in her chair. "But I had studied this scenario. Specifically this scenario, nose gear failure on a Cessna 172. I had read accident reports about it. I had watched videos of people who had done successful gear-up landings and people who had not. I had created a checklist for it. I had visualized what I would do if it happened. So even though I was scared, and I was scared right up until the moment we stopped, I had a plan. I knew the steps. I knew what came next. So I just followed the plan. Fear and preparation are not opposites. You can be completely terrified and completely prepared at the same time. I was both." Michael Chen wrote that down word for word. He underlined the last 3 sentences. His final report, released 6 weeks after the incident, included this note. "This student pilot is recommended for accelerated advanced training and close monitoring for future development. She demonstrates exceptional maturity, extraordinary preparation well beyond any curriculum requirements, and decision-making capability that far exceeds what would be expected from her total flight time. Her systematic approach to emergency preparation, including self-directed study of accident reports, procedure development, and scenario visualization, combined with her ability to execute under extreme psychological stress represents a model for how pilot training at all levels should develop both technical competence and psychological resilience. She represents, in the clearest possible terms, the gold standard of what preparation and commitment can produce." The story traveled the way important stories travel, first through the tight-knit community of people who fly small airplanes, where it spread rapidly and was discussed with the reverence people reserve for genuinely remarkable things. Then a local Phoenix television news station picked it up. Then the national aviation media. Then, because the story had everything, a young woman, an underdog, elite military support, a perfect execution, an inspiring message about preparation and dedication, it went everywhere. 21-year-old female student pilot executes perfect emergency landing, F-22 pilots call her most prepared student they have ever seen. Maya's face appeared on news websites and in aviation magazines and on social media in countries she had never visited. She was deeply uncomfortable with all of it. She did not feel remarkable. She had done what she had prepared to do. That seemed, to her, like the expected outcome of sufficient preparation, not something worthy of celebration. But she did a small number of interviews, because Beex told her to, and because Captain Sarah Martinez sent her a text message from a base in Nevada that said, "Please share your story." Not for the attention, for every student pilot out there who thinks studying emergency procedures is excessive or paranoid. You might change how they think. You might save someone's life. Maya's parents saw the story on the local news the evening of the incident. Her mother called that same night, crying so hard that Maya could barely understand her at first. "Beta, why did you not tell us? You were in danger. You could have," she could not finish the sentence. "I am okay, Mama. I am completely okay. I promise. Her father called an hour later. His voice was different from how it usually sounded when they talked about flying, slower, more careful, as though he was choosing every word with unusual care. I saw the news. I saw what happened. I saw what those Air Force pilots said about you. A long pause. I read the report that the FAA posted. Papa. We told you flying was dangerous. We told you it was a waste of time. We told you to focus on your real studies and not spend money on something like this. Another long pause. We were not right to say those things, or to discourage you. You saved yourself today with the very things we told you were excessive: your studying, your preparation, your checklists. Your hard work saved your life. A pause. We are very proud of you, Beta. Very, very proud. Maya did not say, I told you so. She just said, thank you, Papa, and meant every word. Several flight schools contacted Maya to offer free advanced training. 3 regional airlines sent formal letters expressing interest in her when she eventually reached the qualifications for an airline transport pilot certificate. NASA sent a congratulatory letter, signed by someone with an actual NASA email address, that she framed and hung above her desk immediately. She accepted the offer from one school for accelerated instrument and commercial training and kept going. Captain Sarah Martinez and Maya stayed in contact. What began as a professional follow-up became genuine mentorship, and then, over time and coffee meetings near Luke Air Force Base and regular text exchanges, something more like a real friendship. Hawk came to watch Maya's check ride 2 months after the incident. Maya passed the check ride with 0 deficiencies. Oral exam, clean. Flight test, clean. Every maneuver within standards. Every procedure correctly executed from start to finish. The examiner, a serious man with 18 years of experience, handed her the temporary certificate and said, "Congratulations, Miss Patel. You are a pilot." Maya stood on the ramp outside the flight school and looked up at the sky. The same blue Arizona sky she had stared at through the windshield of a broken airplane, terrified and shaking and alone. Not alone anymore. It is May 2025. 1 year after N-2847X slid to a stop on runway 14 at Phoenix Deer Valley Airport. Maya Patel is 22 years old. She has 412 total flight hours. She is working on her instrument rating and commercial certificate. She goes to the airport 4 times a week, every week. She is getting better. Smoother. More natural. The controls feel less like a broken shopping cart and more like an extension of her hands. Her apartment looks exactly like you would expect. Walls lined with aviation manuals and weather books and navigation charts. A whiteboard covered in study notes. A binder on her desk labeled Emergency Procedures, updated monthly. Her laptop covered in new motivational stickers and in browser tabs showing NTSB accident reports. Her roommate Priya still thinks she is obsessive. Maya still does not care. On the wall above her desk, she has hung 4 things that she looks at every single morning before she opens a textbook or starts planning a flight or begins whatever that day requires. The first is a photograph of N-2847X, her Cessna, the aircraft that she and her preparation brought safely home, sitting on the ramp after the incident, nose scraped and propeller gone but structurally whole. The aircraft has since been repaired and returned to service. It is currently carrying new student pilots through their first lessons, which Maya thinks about sometimes and finds quietly satisfying. The second is a photograph taken on the ramp at Deer Valley on the afternoon of the incident, Maya, Hawk, and Viper standing together, all 3 of them looking like people who have just been through something together, because they have. The third is a page from her logbook. May 18, 2024. N-2847X. 1.3 hours. Pattern work. DVT. Nose landing gear failure in pattern during 4th circuit. Completed full troubleshooting, recycled gear, checked circuit breaker, confirmed no manual extension available, rocked wings. No effect. Declared emergency. Received visual assistance from USAF F-22 flight. Executed nose gear up landing runway 14. Main gear touchdown clean. Held nose off to approximately 25 knots. Controlled nose down. Aircraft slid to stop. Immediate shutdown and evacuation complete. 0 injuries. Propeller destroyed. Aircraft reparable and repaired. Preparation saved my life on this day. Study is never wasted time. Always be ready. Always. The fourth is a printed email. She reads it every morning without fail. Maya, I want you to know something. For the past several months I have been using your story when I teach emergency procedures to new F-22 pilots. I tell them exactly what happened. I tell them about the 21-year-old student pilot with 47 hours who outperformed experienced veterans in a real emergency because she had prepared more thoroughly than anyone ever expected. I use your words, fear and preparation are not opposites. You can be terrified and prepared at the same time. I was both. I have had pilots write that down and tell me later that it changed how they think about preparation. You are influencing people you have never met and may never meet. That is what real leadership looks like. Keep flying, Maya. Keep preparing. The sky needs more pilots exactly like you. Sarah. Maya Patel. Age 22. The aerospace engineering student who nobody noticed. The student pilot with bad landings and purple glasses and a 47-page emergency manual. The 21-year-old who landed a broken airplane and made 2 F-22 pilots go quiet with professional respect. Still obsessive. Still overprepared. Still reading NTSB reports while eating dinner. Still color-coding her checklists. Still pushing her glasses up her nose. Still building, 1 flight hour at a time, the pilot she has always been in the process of becoming. Her parents call every Sunday. Her father asks about her training now, specific questions, interested questions. Her mother still worries. Both of them are proud. Major Tyler Rodriguez has a framed copy of his legendary radio transmission on his office wall at the base. When people ask about it, he tells the whole story. He never gets tired of telling it. Captain Sarah Martinez has Maya's photograph on her desk in her squadron office. When young pilots come to her, especially young women, and ask whether they truly belong in this world of fast jets and high stakes and people who expect you to already be the best before they will let you prove it, Hawk points to the photograph and says simply, if she belongs, you belong. And Maya, every single morning, looks at that email on her wall. She remembers what it felt like to be alone in the sky with a broken airplane in 47 hours and a plan. She remembers that the plan worked. She gets back to work. The most prepared pilot in Arizona. Age 22. Female. Unstoppable. Just getting started.